Hi guys, today we're going to start lesson 2 of unit 5, and we're going to be talking about in the inside of cells. This is just part 1. We will get to part 2 later in the week. All right, let's get started. First thing is the success criteria. You should be able to describe the functions of cell structures and organelles by the end of this lesson. Be sure that you write that down in your notebook. Okay, so how do the parts of a cell work? When you look at a cell through a microscope, you can usually see the outer edge of the cell. Sometimes you can also see smaller structures within the cell. Each kind of cell structure has a different function within the cell. In this lesson, you will discover the different structures that plant and animal cells have in common. You will also uncover some of the differences between the cells. All right, the first part we're going to talk about is the cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid layer that surrounds the cells of plants and some other organisms. The cells of animals, in contrast, do not have cell walls. A plant cell wall helps protect and support the cell. The cell wall is made mostly of a strong material called cellulose. Still, many materials, including water and oxygen, can pass through the wall easily. Next is the cell membrane. It controls which substances pass into and out of the cell. Everything a cell needs, such as food particles, water, and oxygen, enters through the cell membrane. Waste products leave the same way. In addition, the cell membrane prevents harmful materials from entering the cell. All cells have cell membranes. In plant cells, the cell membrane is just inside the cell wall. In cells without cell walls, the cell membrane forms the border between the cell and its environment. Next is the nucleus. A cell doesn't have a brain, but it has something that functions in a similar way. A large oval structure called the nucleus acts as the cell's control center, directing all of the cell's activities. The nucleus is the largest of many tiny cell structures called organelles. Organelles are tiny cell structures that carry out a specific function within the cell. The nucleus is kind of like the brain of a cell. Next is the nucleolus and ribosomes. Within the nucleus, there's a small round structure. This structure, the nucleolus, is where ribosomes are made. Ribosomes are small grain-shaped organelles that produce proteins. Proteins are important substances in cells. They do a lot of things. Next is the cytoplasm. Most of a cell consists of cytoplasm, a thick, gel-like fluid that fills the region between the cell membrane and the nucleus. The fluid of the cytoplasm moves constantly within a cell, carrying along the nucleus and other organelles that have specific jobs. It's kind of like jelly. It moves around. Excuse me. Next is the mitochondria. Floating in the cytoplasm are rod-shaped structures that are nicknamed the powerhouses of a cell. Mitochondria convert energy stored in food to energy the cell can use to live and function. Next is the endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes. The endoplasmic reticulum, often called the ER, is an organelle that forms a maze of passageways in which proteins and other materials are carried from one part of the cell to another. Ribosomes dot some parts of the ER, while other ribosomes float in the cytoplasm. The ER helps the attached ribosomes make proteins. These newly made proteins and other substances leave the ER and move to another organelle. Next is the Golgi apparatus. As proteins leave the ER, they move to a structure that looks like flattened sacs and tubes. This structure can be thought of as a cell's warehouse. The Golgi apparatus receives proteins and other newly formed materials from the ER, packages them, and distributes them to other parts of the cell or to outside of the cell. Next are the vacuoles. Plant cells often have one or more large, water-filled sacs floating in the cytoplasm. These sacs are called vacuoles, and they store water, food, or other materials needed by the cell. Vacuoles can also store waste products until the wastes are removed. Some animal cells do not have a vacuole, while others do. Chloroplasts. A typical plant cell contains green structures called chloroplasts in the cytoplasm. A chloroplast captures energy from sunlight and changes it to a form of energy cells can use in making food. Animal cells don't have chloroplasts, but the cells of plants and some other organisms do. Chloroplasts make leaves green because of leaf cells contain many chloroplasts. Next is lysosomes, and lysosomes contain substances that break down large food particles into smaller ones. All right. Lastly, answer these few questions just to review the key concepts. When you're done, you're done.